I never thought a simple night shift could change my life forever, but that's exactly what happened on a seemingly ordinary Tuesday night at the 24-hour convenience store where I worked. My name is Alex, and this is my story. I'd been working the graveyard shift at Pete's Quick Stop for about 6 months. It was a small store on the outskirts of town, nestled between an abandoned gas station and a dense patch of woods. The pay wasn't great, but the job was easy enough. Stock shelves, man the register, and try not to fall asleep. Most nights, I'd see maybe 3 or 4 customers between midnight and 6 a.m., truckers mostly, grabbing coffee and snacks to keep them going through the long night. That night started like any other. I clocked in at 11:45 p.m., relieving my co-worker who couldn't get out fast enough. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting a harsh glow over the aisles of chips, candy, and energy drinks. Outside, a light drizzle had started, creating a soft patter against the large front windows. By 2 a.m. I had restocked the coolers, swept the floors, and was halfway through a dog-eared paperback I kept behind the counter. The store was silent, except for the low hum of the refrigerators and the occasional car passing by on the highway. I remember thinking how peaceful it was, how I'd gotten used to the silence and the solitude of these late-night shifts. I should have known better. In horror stories, it's always when things seem the most peaceful that everything goes wrong. It was exactly 3:07 a.m. when the bell above the door chimed. I looked up from my book, expecting to see a weary trucker or maybe a local insomniac. What I saw instead made my blood run cold. The man who entered was wrong. There's no other way to describe it. He was tall, unnaturally so, his head nearly brushing the top of the doorframe. His suit was outdated, something you'd see in a black and white photograph from the 1920s. But it was his face that really got to me. His skin was pale, almost translucent under the harsh store lights. And his eyes, God, his eyes were too wide, too bright. They seemed to glow with an inner light that made my skin crawl. He stood there for a moment just inside the door, water dripping from his clothes onto the linoleum floor. Then, slowly, he turned his head towards me. His movements were jerky, like a marionette controlled by an inexperienced puppeteer. When his eyes met mine, I felt a chill run down my spine. "Good evening," I managed to croak out, my mouth suddenly dry. The man didn't respond. Instead, he began to move down the aisles, his gait uneven and stilted. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was very, very wrong. As he moved through the store, I noticed something else strange. The lights seemed to flicker whenever he passed under them, as if his very presence was disrupting the electricity. I tried to tell myself it was just my imagination, that the old wiring in the store was acting up again, but deep down, I knew that wasn't the case. The strange customer made his way to the back of the store, near the refrigerated section. That's when things got even weirder. He stopped suddenly, his body going rigid. Then, slowly, he raised his arm and pointed to something behind the last aisle. I leaned over the counter, trying to see what he was pointing at. At first, I saw nothing, just the empty space between the last aisle and the wall. But then, for just a split second, I saw something. It was like a glitch in reality. A figure, human-shaped but indistinct, flickered into existence for a moment before disappearing again. I blinked hard, sure I was seeing things, but when I looked again it happened once more. The figure appeared, its form distorted and wavering like a bad TV signal, before vanishing. My heart was pounding in my chest now. I wanted to run, to get out of the store and never come back, but I was frozen in place, my eyes locked on the spot where the figure had appeared. The strange customer turned back to me, his movements still jerky and unnatural. He opened his mouth, and I braced myself for what he might say. But the voice that came out wasn't what I expected at all. It was low and rasping, like sandpaper on wood. "Now it knows you're here," he said, his words barely above a whisper but somehow echoing through the store. "It's seen you, and it won't forget." I felt a wave of terror wash over me. My legs felt weak, and I had to grip the counter to keep from falling. "Well, what?" I stammered. "What are you talking about? Who's seen me?" The man's face split into a wide, unnatural grin. His teeth were too white, too perfect. "You'll see," he said, his voice still that awful rasp. "You'll all see." And then, without warning, every light in the store went out at once. The sudden darkness was complete and overwhelming. I heard a sound like static, growing louder and louder until it filled my ears. The last thing I remember is a feeling of vertigo, like the floor had dropped out from under me. When I came to, I was outside. The sun was just starting to rise, casting a pale light over the empty parking lot. I was lying on the wet asphalt, my clothes soaked through from the rain that had apparently continued through the night. I sat up, my head pounding. How had I gotten outside? What had happened after the lights went out? I looked around, trying to get my bearings. The store looked normal from the outside, its neon open sign still glowing in the early morning light. That's when I saw it. In the store window, just for a moment, I swear I saw a face. The face of the strange customer, still smiling that terrible smile. I blinked, and it was gone. I quit my job that day. I couldn't bring myself to go back into that store, not after what had happened. I still don't know what I saw that night or what it meant. But sometimes, when I'm alone in the dark, I swear I can hear that rasping voice again. Now it knows you're here. To anyone listening to this, I have a warning. If you ever find yourself working a late-night shift and a strange customer comes in, don't look at what they're pointing at. Don't acknowledge the glitches in reality. And whatever you do, don't let them know you're there. Because once they know, they never forget. And who knows when they might come back for you. I never thought much of the attic when I first moved into this old house. It was just another dusty, unused space filled with cobwebs and forgotten memories. Little did I know that it would become the source of my worst nightmares. The house itself was a steal, a charming two-story Victorian with more rooms than I knew what to do with. I was excited to finally have a place to call my own, even if it meant dealing with creaky floorboards and drafty windows. The realtor had mentioned the attic in passing, but I didn't pay much attention. After all, who really uses their attic these days? For the first few weeks, everything was normal. I settled into my new routine, unpacked my belongings, and started to make the house feel like home. But then, one night as I was drifting off to sleep, I heard it. Soft footsteps coming from above. At first I brushed it off as the house settling. These old places make all sorts of noises, right? I told myself it was nothing and tried to go back to sleep. But the noises didn't stop. Night after night I'd hear those faint footsteps pacing back and forth in the attic. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was just the wind or a raccoon that had found its way inside. But deep down, I knew it was something else. Something that shouldn't be there. I started having trouble sleeping. Every creak and groan of the house set me on edge. I'd lie awake for hours, straining my ears for any sound coming from above. And then, one night, it happened. The soft footsteps suddenly turned into a frantic run, thundering across the attic floor. It sounded like someone or something was racing from one end to the other in a panic. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst out of my chest. I knew I had to investigate, even though every fiber of my being was screaming at me to run. With shaking hands, I grabbed a flashlight and made my way to the attic stairs. Each step creaked under my weight, and I winced at the noise, afraid of what might hear me coming. The attic door loomed before me, a dark portal to the unknown. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for whatever I might find, and pushed it open. The hinges groaned in protest, and a wave of musty air washed over me. I swept my flashlight beam across the room, illuminating piles of boxes and old furniture draped in sheets. Everything looked normal, undisturbed. But then I saw it. Hidden behind a stack of cardboard boxes was a door I had never noticed before. It was made of old, rusted metal, its surface pitted and scarred by time. My breath caught in my throat as I approached it. This door shouldn't be here. It didn't lead anywhere. The outside of the house didn't have any corresponding entrance or window. With trembling fingers, I reached out and grasped the handle. It was ice cold to the touch, sending a shiver down my spine. I hesitated for a moment, every instinct telling me to turn back. But curiosity won out, and I slowly pulled the door open. The darkness beyond was absolute, swallowing my flashlight beam like a black hole. And then, in that inky void, I saw them, two glowing eyes staring directly at me. They weren't animal eyes reflecting my light. No, these eyes had an inner fire, a malevolent intelligence that froze me in place. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, as those eyes bored into my soul. I don't remember how I got out of the attic. The next thing I knew, I was huddled in my bed, drenched in cold sweat and shaking uncontrollably. I told myself it was just a dream, a hallucination brought on by lack of sleep and an overactive imagination. But deep down, I knew the truth. What I had seen was real, and it was waiting for me. After that night, I avoided the attic like the plague. I pretended it didn't exist, tried to go about my life as if nothing had happened. But I couldn't escape the feeling of being watched, of something lurking just out of sight. And then the whispering started. It always happened when I was alone in the house, usually late at night, when the world outside was quiet. At first, it was so faint I could barely hear it, just a soft susurration on the edge of perception. But as the days went by, it grew louder, more insistent. I couldn't make out words, but the tone was unmistakable, urgent, pleading, and somehow threatening all at once. The whispers seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at the same time. They'd start in one corner of the room, then suddenly shift to another. Sometimes they sounded like they were right behind me, and I'd spin around, heart racing, only to find empty air. Other times, they seemed to come from inside my own head, as if something had burrowed into my mind. I tried everything to drown them out, TV, music, even earplugs, but nothing worked. The whispers always found a way through, worming their way into my consciousness. I couldn't sleep, couldn't concentrate on anything. My work started to suffer, and my friends began to worry about me. But how could I explain what was happening? They'd think I was crazy. As the days turned into weeks, I felt myself slowly unraveling. The constant whispering was driving me to the brink of madness. I'd catch myself talking back to them sometimes, begging them to leave me alone, but they never stopped, never gave me a moment's peace. I've thought about moving out, about selling the house and running as far away as I can, but something tells me it wouldn't matter. Whatever is in that attic, whatever spoke to me through that rusted door, it's not confined to this house. It's latched onto me, and I don't think it's ever going to let go. So here I am, writing this as a warning to anyone who might listen. If you ever find yourself in an old house with a dusty, unused attic, leave it alone. Don't investigate the strange noises. Don't open any hidden doors. Because once you do, you might unleash something that can never be contained again. As for me, I don't know how much longer I can take this. The whispers are getting louder every day, more insistent. They're calling me back to the attic, back to that rusted door and the glowing eyes beyond. And the worst part is, I think I'm starting to understand what they're saying. They're telling me to come home, that I belong with them now. I haven't gone back to the attic yet, but I know it's only a matter of time. Something is waiting for me up there, something that won't rest until I answer its call. So if you're reading this, please, learn from my mistake. Don't let curiosity get the better of you, because some doors, once opened, can never be closed again. I never thought I'd be sharing this, but something happened to me on a solo road trip that I can't forget. Something went horribly wrong, and I've been haunted by it ever since. Maybe by telling my story, someone out there can make sense of what happened, or at least I hope it might serve as a warning. This isn't an easy story to tell, but I have to get it off my chest. It all started when I decided to take a road trip on my own. I needed to get away, clear my head. I'd been driving for hours, the same stretch of highway, no real landmarks or signs to tell me where I was. Then, out of nowhere, my GPS led me to a town that didn't even show up on the map. It was small, almost invisible, but I thought nothing of it. I figured I'd explore, stretch my legs, and maybe grab a coffee, but when I drove in, I felt wrong. The town looked like it was straight out of a forgotten era. Old buildings, quiet streets, but there was something off. I got out of the car and looked around. It was like a ghost town, but there were still lights on in some houses. I knocked on a couple of doors. No answer, not even a sound, just silence. The air felt heavy, like it was pressing down on me. I couldn't shake this feeling that I'd stepped into somewhere I shouldn't be. I thought maybe I was just overthinking it. But something about the way the streets felt empty made me uneasy. I decided to keep walking around. Maybe it was just a quiet town, but that didn't explain why no one was outside. That didn't explain the strange feeling crawling under my skin. Every house I passed was locked tight, the windows dark, and I couldn't shake the feeling that someone, or something, was watching me. As I walked, I noticed details that just didn't add up. The cars parked on the street were all models from decades ago, but they looked brand new. The storefronts had signs advertising products I'd never heard of, with prices that seemed impossibly low. It was like I'd stepped back in time, but everything felt wrong, too perfect, too still. I checked my GPS again, but the town wasn't even on the map. It wasn't just that it wasn't listed, it wasn't there at all. It was like the place didn't exist. I started to panic, but I tried to calm myself. Maybe I had just missed something on the map. Maybe I'd taken the wrong turn somewhere. But when I turned around to leave, the road just wasn't there. It had disappeared. I couldn't see the way out, no signs, no roads leading away, just endless streets stretching on. My heart started racing. I ran back to my car, fumbling with the keys. I had to get out of here, but as I drove, I realized with growing horror that every street looked the same houses, the same eerie stillness. I couldn't find my way back to the highway. It was like the town was shifting around me, changing to keep me trapped. I began driving, trying to get out, but every road just looped back around. I was stuck, and then I saw him, standing in the window of one of the houses, staring at me. A man, his face wrong. His eyes were wide, too wide. I tried to keep driving, but when I passed the house again, he was still there, still watching me. I thought maybe I was just losing my mind from the stress, but the more I looked, the less human he seemed. His face twisted into something I couldn't explain. I blinked, and suddenly he was in a different window, in a different house, but it was the same man, the same unnatural stare. I pressed down on the gas, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. I had to be imagining things. This couldn't be real. At this point, I wasn't sure if I was seeing things, but I swear to God I couldn't get out of that town. It felt like the town itself was alive, keeping me there. I checked the GPS again, and that's when I saw something strange. There was nothing but static, nothing at all. The screen flickered, and for a moment I thought I saw a face in the static, the same face from the window. I threw the GPS onto the passenger seat, my breath coming in short gasps. I couldn't trust anything anymore. Not my eyes, not my mind, not even my car. The fuel gauge was dropping rapidly, even though I'd filled up just before entering the town. It was like the place was draining the life out of everything. I tried everything. I turned back around, hoping to find a way out, but I couldn't find it. I was driving in circles, the same place over and over. The streets never ended, and the same house with the man in the window kept showing up. I don't know how, but I finally made it out of there. I wasn't sure if I was lucky or if the town had finally let me go. But the whole drive back, I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone in my car. As I sped away, I glanced in my rearview mirror. For a split second, I thought I saw the entire town fade away, like a mirage. But when I looked again, there was nothing there. Just an empty stretch of road behind me. I drove for hours, not daring to stop, not trusting any turnoff or small town I passed. I made it home, but it's been weeks, and I still think about that town. Sometimes I wonder if I ever really left. I don't know if what I saw was real or if I'm just losing my mind. But if you ever find yourself on the road and you come across a town that feels off, don't stop. Keep driving. Whatever you do, don't turn back. And if you ever find yourself in a place that doesn't appear on any map, just know that it's not a place meant to be found. There are nights when I wake up in a cold sweat, convinced I'm back in that town. I can still see the man's face, his eyes boring into me. I've tried to research the area, to find any mention of a town like the one I saw, but there's nothing. It's like it never existed, and maybe it didn't, at least not in the way we understand existence. I've started to notice things, small things, that make me question my reality. Sometimes out of the corner of my eye, I'll catch a glimpse of that same old-fashioned storefront, or I'll hear the faint sound of static when I'm driving alone at night. It's like the town is reaching out, trying to pull me back in. I don't know what that place was. A parallel dimension, a glitch in reality, or something darker, something that feeds on lost travelers and confused souls. All I know is that it changed me. I can't look at small towns the same way anymore. I can't trust my GPS or even my own senses sometimes. If you ever see someone in a window staring at you like you don't belong, don't go any further. I don't know if it was a ghost or something much worse, but I can tell you one thing for sure. You don't want to find out. Trust me, there are places in this world that aren't meant for us, pockets of reality that don't play by our rules, and once you stumble into one, you might never truly escape. So be careful out there. Pay attention to your surroundings. And if you ever feel that creeping sense of wrongness, that instinct telling you something isn't right, listen to it. Don't let curiosity get the better of you, because some mysteries are better left unsolved. Some towns are better left unfound. I'm still trying to make sense of what happened to me. Some days, I almost convince myself it was all a dream, a hallucination brought on by too many hours on the road. But then I'll catch a reflection in a window, and for just a moment I'll see that man's face again, those unnaturally wide eyes staring back at me, and I know deep down that it was real. That town is out there somewhere waiting for its next visitor. So please, take my warning seriously. Stay on the main roads, trust your instincts, and whatever you do, don't stop in towns that feel wrong. Because once you're in, you might never truly get out. The town might let you leave, but it'll never let you go. It becomes a part of you, a shadow that follows you wherever you go. I'm sharing this story not just as a warning, but as a plea. If anyone out there has experienced something similar, please reach out. Maybe together we can make sense of these places that shouldn't exist. Maybe we can find a way to truly escape. Until then, I'll keep looking over my shoulder, always half expecting to see that town materializing behind me, ready to reclaim what it believes is rightfully its own. Stay safe out there. And remember, not all who wander are lost, but some places are meant to stay lost forever.